So my house smells like right now, and I don't know if it's because of these guys or Khalil Ware. No, it's definitely because of these guys. They've been pooping all night. Let me get them out of here. They do stink. They stink just like the Heat's offense in the second half tonight. Because, I mean, what the hell was that? I'll tell you what it is. It's what happens when you get in a close game and you don't have a true point guard and you don't have your two best scorers. Which is why, and I'm going to preface this by saying, I do not believe in moral victories whatsoever, but I don't feel that bad about this Heat team. Because at the end of the day, they were very competitive against a very great Spurs team that is now 5-0 for the first time in their franchise's history. And we didn't have Norman Powell, we didn't have Tyler Hero, and we still don't have Kasparas Siakachonis, who I think is really, really going to help these teams, especially late in games or when the Heat are having trouble getting a shot off or the game slows down a little bit. Just having a true point guard like him, I think will help this team tremendously. Now, a guy like Kasparas, I'm not sure exactly how much he'll play, and especially late in games at first, but the point is just having someone of his skill set. Because if you watch this game, particularly in the second half, they would go minutes at a time without even getting a shot off. And that's partly because the Spurs have such a phenomenal defense led by Victor Wembanyama inside, who right now on FanDuel, you can get Wemby to win DPOY at -210, which is insane. I just saw Jimmy High Roller's video about him where he said that Wemby's odds to win the DPOY are like the highest ever by far, like substantially higher, the biggest favorite of all time by like a lot, which makes sense because as long as Wemby plays 65 games, he's winning that award. I mean, he is awesome. There were so many times today that he didn't even get a shot off just because they were scared going up against him. I'll tell you who wasn't scared though. Bam Adebayo with the drop the hammer on his ass. One of the few feel-good moments we had today, but for the most part, it was an uneven game from most of the guys on the team. But Spurs do have a great defense, even outside of Wemby inside. You got great perimeter defenders like Stephon Castle. That guy was amazing last year. He's having another great sophomore season this year. So they have a great defense, and obviously it's going to be tough to score against them without your two leading scorers and a true point guard. So the fact that the Heat were in it late, the fact that they were down 15 to start the fourth quarter and still came back to take the lead, I do find those to be positives, and I kind of am excited about the outlook of this team going forward. You know, because we've been talking a lot about the pace and how it's so great, and I'm over here saying it's sustainable, which I think it is, but I should clarify, I think it's sustainable in the regular season. I think when you get to the playoffs, games just tend to slow down more, and you have to find a way to execute better in the half court, which is what I think a guy like Tyler Hero and Norman Powell will really help you do. You know, that's why if you look at the Heat this season, they're 3-2. The 3 games they won, they really weren't all that close. You know, the Knicks won, final score looked a little close, but for the most part, the Heat dominated that fourth quarter. And of course, we blew out the Grizzlies and the Hornets. But you had a close game versus the Magic. Half-court offense struggled late. You couldn't hit shots, couldn't get an offensive rebound or a defensive rebound, gave up too many offensive rebounds. You lost that game. Similar story tonight where you couldn't get a defensive rebound, couldn't hit a three-pointer late, and the Spurs took advantage on every single occasion. So I think the Heat have some guys that can help them late in games. So the fast-paced stuff will be nice to carry them early on. But then when things settle down, hopefully the Heat can show us that they can be a decent clutch offense. Because last year, their biggest problems was they were too slow. You know, they were a poor shooting team, and their clutch offense sucked. Well, this year they showed us that they can score and they can play fast, but they haven't quite showed us yet that their clutch time offense can be successful. So I'm still looking forward to seeing how that will be once we do get completely healthy. But I got a bunch of notes here because it certainly was a fun game. That's why it's really hard to be mad. You know, I almost am mad because they gave us false hope and then they wasted it. But at least we had false hope at all, you know, because, this was a 2-screen night. I had the Dolphins game on my laptop, and the Dolphins blowing out the Falcons last week, it gave me one more week of attention for them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have got a screen at all. I would have just checked the box score later. But because they dominated the Falcons, I said, hey, let's see how Tua does on prime time. They went down the field, first drive, kicked a field goal, forced a 3-and-out. I'm thinking, okay, maybe the Dolphins will put together back-to-back weeks of good football. And then immediately the next play, after they got the ball back, Tua passed to Taj Washington, who fumbles his first career reception. The Ravens would go on to score, and they would score quite a lot today. I don't know who was better today, Lamar Jackson or Wembanyama, but I got to watch a couple of superstars because that's what those guys are. And unfortunately, I don't think any Miami team outside of Inter Miami and Messi, I don't think any of them have a superstar right now, unless I should put some respect on Ruben Bain's name. Shout out to my guy. But anyways, going into this game here, same starting lineup as last time. You had Pella in for Norman. Early on, Bam was hitting a couple of threes. You could tell the game plan was to kind of stretch him out a bit to really make Wembanyama leave the paint. And I think they did a great job of that early. There were some times where the switching on Miami's defense was a bit weird. It almost kind of worked in a way. There was a lot of times where Davion would switch onto Wemby, and then Pella would switch onto Wemby. And for the most part, I feel like they kept Wemby in check, mostly in that first half. He did finish with 27, 18, 6 assists, and 5 blocks. But a lot of those points was late in the game, and a lot of those blocks were goaltends. So the stat line isn't quite as good as it looks because it does look damn good. But I think for the most part, the Heat did a good job on him today, and that includes guys like Davion and Pella and Wiggins, who guarded him really well a few times in the post. So I feel like they did as good as you could possibly expect on the next potential GOAT. But you had Wiggins. There was a play where he got fouled on a drive. Should have been a goaltend because Wemby clearly hit it on the way down. They did not rule it a goaltend. So that was just one of the times where I felt like Wemby got a great call because, yeah, I get it. You know, like I just said, he might be the next potential GOAT. He's an alien, whatever. But the refs be riding him a little too hard. I'm not going to lie to you because there were some plays that there's no way in hell he blocked them or didn't foul them. And he just got a really good whistle, too good a whistle for my liking. That should have been a goaltend on Wiggins. Wiggins would end up missing both free throws. So really big swing play there. That was the first one of a few. But the Heat good defense continued. Yeah, Pella, he drew a charge on Wemby in transition. So that's a good example of how Pella was guarding Wemby. And then this was a foul that really frustrated everybody, especially Spo. You had Davion Mitchell, who was shoved by Stephon Castle. They called a blocking foul. Immediately, Davion says challenge. Spo challenges right away because he's 2-0 on the season on challenges. Shout out to Spo. But then the refs come back and say that Davion's shoulder touched Stephon Castle first, so it was a blocking foul before the push-off. And then they proceed to show the replay in which there was no contact before the push-off. It's a very frustrating play because Castle also hit that shot, so it ended up being an and one, and that was the second foul on Davion Mitchell. So from the jump, the officiating was quite suspect, I will say. Davion would actually check out of the game, and Miami would have 3 straight turnovers because we don't really have a true facilitator as it is. But Davion Mitchell's been as good as you could hope for in terms of assist-to-turnover ratio. So without him in there, you really felt the offense kind of gets watered down quite a bit. But then Bam would come back in and do a beautiful job. He would just start cooking. He blew past Wembanyama, even though there was like a little Bam hooked Wemby a little bit. But point is, Bam was trying to take him off the dribble also in addition to spacing the floor. So it's not like Bam was just camping at the three-point line all day, although he took double-digit attempts today. We used to pray for times like this. Bam taking double-digit threes? Who would have thought? But here we are. That being said, I still felt like Bam had some strong takes, like that one on Wemby, even though he hooked him a little bit. Then he had a nice jump hook inside out of the post while Wemby was too busy on the perimeter guarding Jovic. For some reason, I don't know why anybody would guard Jovic. He stinks. He's not having a good start to the season. Had like a good game, but outside of that, it's a very disappointing start to his season. And I'm sure he'll get better, but let's say he doesn't. That's a lot of money, $15 million for the lack of production he's given you. I've been a little bit disappointed with Jovic. But anyways, Bam did finish with the post hook inside. Want to give him credit because he doesn't often finish those post jump hooks. We've talked about that at length. But then Bam, he would end up locking up Wemby in isolation. Wemby actually would travel. The refs again wouldn't call it, so like already the second time this game they're giving Wemby benefit of the whistle, and then that would end up leading to a Barnes 3, I think. So he definitely lost a few momentum swinging plays due to officiating there. Or it was Harper, that hit the 3 on that one. But from that point on, from the end of the first quarter, the pace was insane. Never seen anything like it. Every shot both ways was getting put up with under 5 seconds. Taking off the shot clock. Both teams, boom, 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 boom. Fun to watch, man. It was good hoops. The Spurs would end up closing the quarter on a 10-2 run, though, to be up 33-31 after the first quarter. I didn't feel great at this point because the Heat were shooting 62% and the Spurs were only shooting 42%. So to be shooting 20 percentage points higher, but you're still losing is not a good sign. And And of course, that's in part to the 7 first quarter turnovers that the Heat had. And that's just going to be very difficult to overcome. But going into the second quarter, Jovic really started selling a lot, was forcing shots, forced a corner, fadeaway 3 over Wemby, which bricked it. He looked awful tonight. No other way to put it. But fortunately, he had my guy, Simone Fontecchio, Mama Mia, Mama Tria. That boy caught on fire and really helped keep the lead afloat. Same with Andrew Wiggins, who had some great shots once Bam went to the bench. Fontecchio ended up having an air ball on one of his Heat checks, which is okay. He was on fire. But Wiggins caught the air ball, finished with a midi over Wemby. Then he had a tough midi pull, hand in the face. Then he had an aggressive layup, bump into Wemby's chest, step through to finish with the layup. And then he drew a foul on Wembanyama, attacking him off a closeout. So I thought Wiggins was really awesome in that second quarter as well for the rest of the game, really. There was points where it was Wiggins, Fontecchio, or bust for the Heat's offense. And that started in the second quarter. But Bam would come back, and he did look aggressive to finish that quarter. Had a great drive on Wemby where he was hammered. There was no call. Bam was pissed, rightfully so, because third time this game, Wemby was just allowed to get away with a violation. So we knew Bam was mad. Looked like he banged his knee. He was kind of limping up the court a little bit. I'm hoping he's okay. And then there was no doubt about it that he was just fine. Because 2 plays later, he caught the ball in the corner. Wemby ran out to close out on the 3. Bam blew past him and dropped the swinging hook hammer on Wembanyama's head. Will go down as probably a top 5 dunk in Bam's career. You got that one. You got the one on Sabonis that I can remember. You got the one where he did the right foot jab step spin move past Jaylen Brown. There's a few good ones in Bam's career. I'm sure I'm missing a ton. You had the one from... No, that was Derrick Jones Jr. against Toronto on that one. But definitely one of the best plays of Bam's career. Nice to see him take his frustration out. And, I kind of like that about Bam in this game. At least he wasn't sitting there crying, complaining. He was being aggressive. You can tell he wanted to take this matchup personal, just like he does with Jaren Jackson. We saw the same thing today. And although Bam got very cold late from the perimeter, overall, he had a nice performance. I think he finished with over 30 points. So I want to give Bam some credit there for being aggressive. Unfortunately, the Heat were still down at the half. They were down by 1 point. They were actually up 7 with 2 minutes to go in the quarter, but then they gave up another run. So back-to-back quarters where they finished very, very bad. And it's like in NBA, if you could finish each quarter strong, I feel like you win most of the games. And it's just unfortunate today they're playing so well, but a 2-minute collapse kind of ruins everything. But anyways, we'd go into the third quarter, or should I say third quarter. Wiggins would make a layup to take the lead, and then the Heat would not score again for 4 straight minutes of game time. They would have tons of turnovers just off miscommunication. They were throwing the ball out of bounds. They would actually go down as much as 9. Andrew Wiggins did his best to keep the Heat afloat. Hit a few baskets. He forced back-to-back turnovers on Wemby in the post. Wemby was trying to back him down. Wiggins was able to poke the ball loose, so I thought he was phenomenal on defensively tonight. And literally, Wiggins had every single basket for the Heat for the first, 9 minutes of the quarter. There was like 3.5 minutes left before Wiggins would check out the game, which I thought was very dumb of Spo. Wiggins is doing everything. How the hell can you check him out the game right now? I knew that he was about to be cooked. Sure enough, that's exactly what we saw, because the Spurs would end the quarter on a 13-0 run and be up 15 going into the fourth. In that third quarter, the Heat only scored 14 points, and the only non-Wiggins ones was 2 Bam free throws and 1 Davion Mitchell 3 that bounced in. Imagine if one of the other guys could have hit a shot. Ware was bricking threes left and right. That's where Bam's cold shooting started. If you could have got 3 or 4 of those shots to fall, we're looking at a completely different game. Especially since the start of that fourth quarter, the Heat went on a really big run, sparked by a Fontecchio and 1, baby mama. 3. That boy is spicy. That was actually the foul wasn't on him. Harper was trying to run over a Bam screen, but Fontecchio was in the act of shooting, would make the basket. Bam would hit the free throw, and that would ignite a 17-0 run. Or 17-1 run was it? I think I forget, but Fontecchio would hit another wild running 3 off a screen. Bam had an aggressive take on Wemby, dished it off to Jaime. Then Bam had the tip in for the lead off of Jaime missing transition. And defensively, the Heat went zone. It worked so well. We saw them run zone great last year. It looked awesome today. until it didn't. But during that time, they forced Wemby into some tough midi fades, and that's what allowed the Heat to get back in it. But then, unfortunately, the Heat continued to go cold. Bam would miss some easy threes, and then Vassell would hit a three. Wemby would hit a three. Then Barnes would hit a three off an offensive rebound, and it's just that it could have went either way. If the Heat would have hit their threes and Spurs missed, you're looking at a different game. That's just not how the tables turned tonight. And that's also what happens when you play zone. You're susceptible to giving up offensive rebounds and also giving up open threes, and that is what we saw in the fourth quarter. But overall, really fun game. We'll go ahead and run through the box score real quick here, where you had Andrew Wiggins, 24 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 11 to 18 shooting. He was awesome tonight. Then you had Bam Adebayo, 31 and 10, 12 of 27 from the field, and 4 of 13 from 3. Wow, I can't even believe the words that are coming out of my mouth. Bam Adebayo, 4 of 13 from 3. It's new times, ladies and gentlemen. 2025, Bam Adebayo, the sniper attempter. He didn't shoot them that well tonight, but they were all wide open. So I trust that he can go better than 4 of 13, which he will need to do because they were wide ass open, some of them. But overall, I thought he was pretty good today. He was actually a +7 in a game that he lost by 6. That tells you how good Bam was today. And then Khalil Ware. After dominating Wemby last year, dominating him in the preseason, man, was I feeling optimistic about him going into today. He was terrible. 0 points, 7 rebounds, 0 of 4 from the field, and 0 of 4 from 3. Yes, that's right. Your 7-foot athletic freak, all 4 of his shot attempts were from 3-point range. Make it make sense. I understand he's going against Wembanyama. I understand Wembanyama is a paint deterrent. But for all of your shots to be triples, and they were wide open too. He probably should have hit some of them at least. But that just can't happen. And when you're watching this team run out there and they're playing with pace earlier in the game, Khalil Ware isn't on the same speed as the rest of those guys. He's not playing with the same kind of pace that those guys are. And it's a frustrating watch. Even defensively, he doesn't go after these rebounds as hard as I feels like he should. Every game, you have 1 or 2 turnovers because he bobbles a rebound or he gets a rebound and throws a lackadaisical pass to the other team. You get those every game, and it's a frustrating watch, which is part of the reason that Khalil Ware was a -20 tonight. Actually, I think in the last game versus the Hornets, I'm going to double check real quick before I speak ill on his name. But remember that he won that game by like 30, okay? And Khalil Ware was a -14. The only minus on the team. Everybody else was a plus. You know how bad you have to be a -14 in 26 minutes in a game your team wins by 30? That plus minus can be a very finicky stat. I understand that. But not in that case. If you watch the game, that number makes sense. And then same thing tonight with the Heat losing by 6 and Khalil Ware was a -20. The biggest minus by far. Second worst was Jovic at -13. And then the only other one was next after that, I guess, was David Mitchell -8. So, again, if you watch the games, you can kind of use the plus minus to prove your points, not vice versa, because it can be finicky. But tonight, no, that tells it perfectly. Because, yeah, Khalil Ware was no good. So lost defensively. There was times in that zone where the Heat were rotating so well, and then you see a guy open in the corner, and it's because Khalil Ware either forgot to rotate or didn't feel like rotating. He's just standing in the paint, and then he decides to run late on the closeout, show fake effort. He wasn't good today at all. Pelle Larsson today in the start, 5 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. So continues to be a little bit of good at everything, which is what we've been, or good at a little bit of everything, which is what we've been saying about him. Did hit a 3-pointer today, so that's always positive for him. And then Davion Mitchell, probably his worst performance in a Heat jersey. Still had 11 points and 4 assists. Nothing against Davion Mitchell. It's just he never plays bad in the Heat jersey. Never. So even an 11-4 game is probably his worst game just because he's been so awesome. And I think maybe I was starting to expect a little too much from him because he was fine today. Just a rough shooting night for him. He was 4 of 10, and then 3 turnovers to his 4 assists. So rough night for him, but we chilling. I trust that the dog will bounce back. And then Jaime Jaquez today, his lowest scoring game, 2 of 8 today, only 6 points, but still had 8 rebounds and 6 assists. Didn't really expect much from him today just because we know he likes to drive inside. And against Wembanyama, you're not going to get a lot of layups. So I didn't really expect him to have a stupendous performance today. And then Drew Smith off the bench, 6 points, 5 assists. Jovic in 9 minutes scored 0 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist. He was 0 of 5. Yeah, he was terrible. A bit concerning, coming into that big extension. Well, the extension doesn't technically kick in for him yet, but I was hoping to see a tangible leap from him. We haven't seen it thus yet, but he's very young, so he'll bounce back, I'm sure. And then Fontecchio, the spicy Italian, 18 points, 5 of 9 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3. He's awesome, Shame you wasted a Fontecchio game like that, because 5 of 7 from 3 is ridiculous. I guess from the Spurs side of things, real quick, we talked about Wemby, Castle with 21, 6, and 8. Damn, that boy is good. And then Dylan Harper got you 13 points, and everything else was spread around kind of evenly today. So, this game's going to come down to the turnovers for the Heat. Only finished with 14 turnovers. Definitely felt like there's no way. It felt like a lot more than that, because even to end the game, like 5 of their last 6 possessions were turnovers. So, I don't know. I guess it's more so when the game tied down or was tied or got to crunch time, whatever you want to say. That's really when the turnover started to pile up, just because, the lack of a true facilitator was prevalent, as we discussed earlier. I think that's really all I got to say about this game. You can still get the Heat at plus 310 to win the Southeast Division on FanDuel. I still like that bet, although the Magic won today and the Heat lost, but those odds are dropping slightly. So those are one of the ones that I want to keep tracking throughout these videos, just so we can kind of monitor throughout the season. Because remember, it was plus 1100 just a week ago. So it's already, the odds have already gotten worse by like 1,000 almost. So anyways, that's all I got to say for this video. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. The Heat do have a relatively rough rest of this road trip coming up. I guess I'll check the schedule for y'all real quick here. So tonight was the Spurs, and then they have the Lakers, who are missing LeBron and Luka, but that boy Austin Reeves, built different, y'all. I can't believe it used to be a discussion, him or Tyler Hero. He's way better. But then you got the Clippers, who I do think kind of suck. But then you have Denver to end the road trip. Obviously, that would be a loss. So I would at least like to go 500 on this trip. So maybe the Heat could win both games in LA. It'll be difficult because that one's a back-to-back. But we'll see what happens. If Norman Powell can get back sooner rather than later, which he said he will be, I think this Heat team will be just fine. But make sure y'all like the video and subscribe. Your support is greatly appreciated. And I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city trying to get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. This homegrown bitch don't offend me.